Hello, my name is Aaron DeLay, and I am the producer and host of many programs that you listen to here on Create at Morgan. A new program, which we're introducing today, a new podcast, is called the Quantum Photons. Now, originally, this podcast had been envisioned as a video podcast, and it does exist on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/adelayedteacher, and you can see that video podcast in its totality there. However, because the video file is so big and so significant, over 2.2 gigs, and because of the limitations that video podcasts present, specifically with our hosting company that I'm currently using, and even though we had pushed our limit to the highest plan possible to allow for a large amount of file upload, and despite attempts to try and minimize through Adobe Premiere the file size down to 480p, at an hour and 20 minutes, it was still too much to be able to be uploaded and still maintain our file size requirements on a monthly basis with Libsyn. This is just the nature of video podcasts. We're not a big production house. We're not a Joe Rogan. We're not a Mike Rowe. Like, this is it's just me. And we are not an enterprise or company who can, purchase additional. That's just, we're tiny. So as you listen to this podcast, I'm letting you know that there's going to be moments where you're going to hear me or Stefan say, hey, look at that. And we're going to be probably play acting as we look at the camera and speak to the camera. If you would like to listen to this with the video and see it, please, again, youtube.com/adelayedteacher. If you don't mind listening to the podcast as an audio version and you're good to go, well, congratulations. Welcome to the debut episode of the Quantum Photons with Aaron and Stefan, coming up here next on Create at Morgan. Thanks for listening, and thanks for continuing to listen and support our programs. Oh my gosh, the countdown has ended. Welcome to the Quantum Photons. I thought I was going to have a lot harder time saying that, so I was preparing myself. I was like, but I made it. I did it well, and I spoke well of myself. I spoke well of myself? Nope, I spoke myself well. Welcome to the Quantum Photons. My name is Aaron. That person on the other side of the screen is
Stefan. Hello. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the show. So this is our first ever adventure into video podcasting. I have always done audio podcasting for most of my life, and this is Stefan's first opportunity to do anything podcasting-wise, I think.
I've done audio podcasting, never video.
Okay, but no video.
This is new territory
then
for me too.
This is going to be the most exciting thing since sliced cheese or sliced bread, depending on which universe you live in. So today's opening question of the day, it is a quintessential question because this is a science podcast. If you haven't figured it out, I am not looking at my camera because my camera's over wherever it is. It's over there. Hi, camera. So I will be looking askance or askew. Maybe next time I'll put the camera in front so you can see my face, my full frontal face and all its beauty. So the podcast structure is we ask you a question of the day and we answer it. And it can be related to our conversation, or sometimes it's just like, tell us about your feelings about apples. And then we talk about apples for 5 minutes, but that's not today. Today's subject is since it's a science show, right? It's a science show, but everything's science, including science fiction. Who would you be as a chief science officer if from the Star Trek movies, shows, all of it? It's all on the table, right? And then what ship would you serve on? Would it be, and you can be specific or you can be general, like the class, like a frigate or an exploration. So if you're playing along at home, on the home game, this is your challenge as well, is to decide, okay, from the many Star Trek shows and movies, which science officer would I want to be, or who best reflects me, and what ship would I serve on? You apparently, Stefan, already had an answer for this, so I have to think while you give us an answer as to your chief science officer and your ship.
I didn't have the science officer yet, but I had the ship.
Whoops, sorry. Well, right, I'm an amazing host, so I just threw him under the bus. Just there you go, Stefan. You're fun. He's back there. He'll be fine.
That's kind of how it goes as a co-host. But anyhow,
just along for the ride. It's gonna be great. Everything's on fire, but it's great.
Because the only science officer that is super iconic is Spock. He's the one that everyone thinks about when it comes to science officers. While there's many others, that's the one that everyone thinks about because of Spock. It's just who he is. Like, I'm trying to think. I'm like, who else could I use? And I'm really kind of like racking my brain trying to remember the different people. I'm even
All right,
trying
you ready? Oh,
What?
let's list of science officers. Here we go. Okay, well, there's an online chief science officer. We're gonna go to Memory Alpha, the web's favorite place to do everything. So science officers, obviously Spock was a science officer. Where's the list? Here we go. Okay, you ready? Here we go. We should have done this before. Shame on us for not doing our research. We're learning. First episode. It's a pilot. Okay, so from Star Trek Insurrection was Har's. Okay, that's a weird one. Someone we don't know. Michael Burnham from Star Trek Discovery, of course, was a science officer. Jetsia Dax. Okay, so Jetsia Dax was our science officer. USS Enterprise Star Trek Motion Picture, Will Decker was the science officer. They list everything. Saru on the USS Shenzhou in Discovery was a science officer. Sonak, who died, unfortunately, poor guy. Spock was a science officer. T'Pol on Enterprise. Tuvok on Excelsior. And then Dmitry Valtain on the Excelsior as well. He was a junior science officer. Yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of science officers. This was a terrible question. Why did I ask it?
I think I've got my answer though, even though
okay, go with your answer while I try and contemplate my life choices.
It would be Dax.
Yeah. Jetsia because what was Ezra? Was Ezra Dax? Was she not a
she was
not a science officer, was she?
She was. Yeah, because she took Jadzia's place.
Okay, yeah.
But Deep Space Nine for me was probably one of my favorite Star Trek shows. I'm not gonna lie, just the way that the story is, and Jadzia as a science officer was just very unique. One, because she was a Trill, and Trills have all these different lifetimes before them, so she has so much experience in everything.
All those memories. Yeah.
So I think I would go with her because of her vast knowledge of experience through the different hosts that she had. She was very unique. Also, she married Worf, of all people. She married a Klingon.
You married a,
that's just crazy.
I would. It's crazy town. I think I like Jetsia Dax, both as a character, but the actress brought some serious and amazing weight to that character. Like, you believed it was Jetsia Dax. Like, all those memories, and she would call Benjamin Sisko the old man, and all this stuff. Like, all of that was so well done. And it's like you say, a lot of people love DS9 because it dared, in some ways, did not just dared, but it just was different. It was different Trek. It was, it was on a station. Nobody had done Star Trek on a station. It was always a ship. Why? And of course, people were upset by that when it debuted. They're like, well, how dare you? The Star Trek should move. It's like, but I loved it when it came out. And to this day, I will go back and I will watch episodes. I need to do a full watch through.
Same.
And have you watched the I think it's a Netflix special where they did like a look back on DS9 with all the actors who were around.
Yes.
That was some of the most beautiful production and conversations, some of the most hilarious as well, but also some of the most heartbreaking because hilarious because it was just like these guys still like each other. They still have that kind of connection. They still share that charisma with each other. Like they got it. But it was also sad because when those writers got together and they started writing, okay, here's what we would do with the next season if we were to give another season now. And I sat on the edge of my seat every time that scene came on screen where they were working through the show and they were talking about, okay, well, this character's here. Well, this character's here. Well, this is happening here. Ooh, we've got a new ship. This is happening here. Okay, DS9. Da 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 da. And I was just like, make this happen, please. Love of all that's holy in the prophets. Make this show happen. And when that special ended, it was just like, but that's never going to happen. We're never going to get that season. We're never going to get the rest of that story that could tell so much more about those characters that we loved. And just adored. And I think that's the power of Star Trek overall. And when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about our Star Trek and our science connections and beginnings. But I think to kind of close out the intro, I remember from each of the Star Trek series, from TOS, TNG, Voyager, DS9, Enterprise, sort of. I remember moments that I treasure from those shows where I think back and I go, that was Star Trek. That was beautiful. That was brilliant. And that's the power of Star Trek. And even in the movies, never mind, Insurrection's its own thing. It's a thing. It exists, and its qualities. People have very, very different views of Insurrection, but then Nemesis was just. People got feelings. I still have feelings all these years later. But I would say before Insurrection, like even Generations has some incredible moments that are absolutely Star Trek to the core. And I think that's what I always come back to.
It's funny, though.
I'll tell a story after we come.
I'm the person who has that other outlook. I like Nemesis for certain reasons, but my outlook on things is different than other people. So that's exactly the reaction most people give me.
Tom Hardy in his first role, and it was a disaster. Oh, it was rough. He was a good actor. Don't get me wrong. He was a great actor. But what they gave him,
oh yeah,
sweet Nelly.
There was a lot of bad parts in that movie, but there was also some really cool parts for me because I'm a nerd through and through, as we know. And one of the coolest things for me was when the Scimitar uncloaked. I'm not gonna lie, that ship, I was just like, they're in trouble. Like, that was my first reaction.
All right, we will live to debate the merits of Nemesis another day. Let us take our intro, and we will be back. We're gonna turn our cameras off.
Though. We gotta.
Shoot. We're gonna go to break. We're gonna go to the intro music. We're gonna come back, and we'll talk about our ships, and then we'll talk about our nerddom. So much to talk about tonight here on the Quantum Photons. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this musical introduction. Yeah. Okay, so what ship would you choose, Stefan?
So I would go with the Sovereign class, because I just love the ship. I love the look of it. I love that it was captained by Picard, who is one of my favorite captains in any of the Star Trek series. But I just really like the Sovereign for the ship that it was, like its sleek appearance and the way that it was kind of like the ship that everybody wanted to be on. But it was more the fact of like what the ship did and what it what it meant, because it was the Enterprise, and the Enterprise is like the ship that everyone knows in Star Trek, and I just really like the look of the ship. So that would be the ship that I would specifically choose if I had a ship to choose.
Okay, nice. So I have had a great love of they're calling it the Constitution 2 now. It was before we got Picard season 3 and all its awesomeness. The USS Enterprise NCC 1701A was the Constitution refit. Until then, they retconned it, and I'm not mad about it. I don't care. But depending on your perspective, it's the Constitution refit, or more canonically, it's the Constitution 2. I love and unapologetically adore that design. And no matter what you do, no matter how much you threaten me with a good time, I will never, ever, 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 ever give up that ship, because it's the lines are clean, the design of the corridors and the bridge, and it is everything that the design of the evolution of Star Trek could be. Motion picture, but from Wrath of Khan forwards, that bridge and the Enterprise and how it looked was just, I loved it. I would love to serve on one of those. I know they're old. I know they're whatever. My second choice in the more modern age would be the fat one, the Galaxy class, because I grew up on TNG. I grew up watching that ship every single week. And so when Picard season 3 happened, spoiler alert, coming in for Picard season 3, if you haven't seen it, what is wrong with you, and why haven't you watched the most amazing television show season 3 of ever time? That's hyperbole, forgive me. Go with it.
Don't be doing that.
Yeah, that's that's good. That's the internet comments are going to be like, what? I didn't mean, I was just being hyperbolistic. So I loved the return of the Enterprise D in Picard season 3 towards the end. It was just like my little teenage heart from watching on my little color TV every week, watching that ship and just seeing it come back in a canon experience was just, yeah, it was great.
It was nostalgic for a lot of people.
So there's a lot of debate, and we at some point will probably sit down and maybe we'll walk through season 3 and maybe some episodes and talk about it. I love season 3 for what it was and for what it, and in my opinion, in this little old humble opinion, it closed out the story of TNG. It was a great way to bring it to a close, to apologize for Nemesis and to redeem the crew and all that. I will tell you, and this is just me being a nerd, we had FanFest here last year in July, and I got to meet Jonathan Frakes. I got to sit with I got to talk to the dude for what I felt was like 10 minutes, but it may have been only 5, but it felt like 10. There was no line. And so I just walked up and I talked to Liz, like, hey, do I go? She's like, oh yeah, just go ahead. And what do you got to sign up? Here's the thing to say. Okay, cool. Go talk to Mr. Frakes. I was like, so like any nerd, I'm just like, hello, Mr. Frakes, how are you? But we got to talking about the Picard season 3. And he started talking about like, yeah, this is what we wanted. We wanted to make sure that our characters were represented, that we were true to those characters and the writing was good. And I said, look, Mr. Frakes, you know as well as I do that there was a time where Star Trek wasn't around, where there was this great desert of content where we didn't have anything. And I said, please don't stop making Star Trek. And I'm one of probably over the last year, millions of people he's shook hands with. But it was just really cool to talk to the dude and nerd out about Star Trek with Jonathan Frakes. Like, I have never in my 41 years of life had an opportunity to stand across from a Star Trek actor and go, hey, let's talk about the cool thing that you did and why you did it and the intricacies of that thing and all. And like, it was just talking to a fellow Star Trek nerd.
Right.
There was no like, oh, it's Jonathan Frakes. Ooh, it was like, no, this is Jonathan Frakes, Star Trek, both alum and nerd, and like very much holding to how Star Trek should be captured. So It was just one of those moments of just like, oh, Star Trek is
still yet to meet anyone from Star Trek, but then again, where I live, there's not a whole lot of ability for that. So I'm counting down to FanFest of this next year for it. Okay, so let's talk science, but let's talk about each of our science experiences. I have talked a lot for this first part of the episode, and the intro music is still not loading. It's just sitting there, and I don't. Here, you know what? I'm gonna remove. Let's do this. I'm gonna remove it. So while you talk, I'm going to see if I can get it to work. So I guess here's what we're doing. We are both science nerds in our own ways. You, Stefan, for various reasons, are more accredited in the actual sciences of the science, whereas I am more of the science fiction and just like a novice at understanding how science works. So I guess the quandary for both of us, the quest for both of us today on this podcast, what is your science journey? Number one, where did it start? How did it ignite? Who ignited it, and who helped ignite it, and then care for that fire inside you as you continued on your science journey? But then the second part of that question is, what is your science fiction journey, and how did that begin? Where did it begin, and how has it continued over the years? So we'll start with science and then move into science fiction. The floor, as they say, is yours. Well, as you said, I definitely have a more accreditation of science compared, but that's, we're going to get into that here in a minute. But so science for me, of course, you start in high school and kindergarten and you learn bits and pieces of science. Well, that science didn't really interest me that much. It was just like, okay, it's part of life. I get it. It's important, but it's not like something I'd want to do. Would I want to go be a chemist for the rest of my life? No, I'm just being honest. However, when I was younger, I was trying to think of like the age. I would say 12 or 13. There was a replay of a space shuttle launch. And when I saw that launch, there was just something in my head that was like, I would love to be a part of making that happen someday. And I always had that affinity for space from different aspects. Like in school, I'd do projects on space, or I'd look things up about NASA, or I watched like the moon landing. Like there was different times and places that I just started to explore. Well, as I got older, that it wasn't that it wasn't there. It just sort of went downhill from there. So, I finished high school. I moved in and started working at Walmart. Not the most glorious job, but it's a decent job to start out. And, at that point, I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to go to college. It's just not me. That was my thought. My true goal was I wanted to be a heavy equipment operator. I've always loved heavy equipment. You could ask my dad. There was actually times where he would see me because my neighbor used to have equipment and he would bring it by our house all the time working over at his house. I would run to the room closest to his house so I could watch. That was my love. I had a twinkle in my eye anytime I saw that. And it was always my want and goal to be a heavy equipment operator. Well, as life progressed, I went and worked for a construction company after Walmart. It didn't go so well. The company was a little rough, but, that's here nor there, part of life experiences. So we moved on, and I went back to Walmart. But the funny kicker is, while I was at Walmart, I got a phone call from a government agency, and they wanted me to work for them. And so I had put in an application with them right out of high school, and I was, 21, I think, when they finally called me and was like, hey, do you want a job? And I was like, well, yeah. I mean, this is kind of a stupid thing for you to ask me if I want to work for you. And just because of safety reasons, I'm not saying what the agency is. And that's a big thing for me as well.
It was Area 51!
Right, yes, 100%. But for Aaron as well, I'm protecting both of us by not saying where that is. However,
Did you hear that, government authorities who are monitoring our transmissions?
Right.
Continue, sorry.
Anyhow, as we was saying, so I got hired with them. And in my hiring process with them, when I was interviewed, the person that interviewed me, the main interview panelist, she looked at me and she said, I'm going to hire you. She said, this is very rare because most of the time we don't hire people without college degrees. It is very rare that government agencies will hire you unless you've had an internship or things like that.
Right.
She said, I'm going to hire you.
Yeah, because you got to have those check boxes. You got to have those check boxes. You got to have those certifications. They have to do their paperwork as much as you had.
Correct.
It's a whole thing, having never worked for the government.
It took me over a year to get hired there. Over a year.
Yeah.
But
it's a process.
Regardless, everyone, when I got hired, they looked at me when I was first there like, what, you don't have a college degree? Huh? What? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. So anyhow, in that interview, the person looked at me and she was like, look, she said, I want you to go get a college degree. I don't care what it's in, but she said, you're too smart not to go get a degree in something. She said, I want you to make me that promise. I was like, all right, I'll make that promise. So it took me a few years because I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. At first I was like, well, maybe I'll get a degree that aligns with them so that I could work with them longer. But then someone mentioned the school, which I go to, which is American Public University. I will plug my school 100%. It's 100% online. For sure. And if someone wants to go to a school that's online, this is a school to go to. It's really good. But anyhow, I was looking at their different degrees, and I'm like, I wonder. And I'm scrolling, and I see space studies, and immediately my thoughts are like, well, this is interesting. Yeah. So I go in, and I look at the specific concentrations, and they have 3. They have astronomy, space policy, and aerospace science. Okay. And I was like, okay, well, aerospace science obviously seems like the most interesting, so I click on it. Well, the specifics of my degree, I'll name them, is orbital mechanics, launch and reentry systems, rocket propulsion, satellite and spacecraft systems, and I believe space transportation systems. Not on top of what you learn before you do your concentration, history of space flight, introduction to space studies, things like that. Well, when I looked at that, I was like, this has to do with rockets. This isn't learning how to build a rocket. This is learning how a rocket goes into space, like how the propulsion of a rocket works, how you launch a rocket, how the orbital mechanics of a rocket work. And I actually went and looked a few months ago because I was preparing. I only have 10 months left of school, and I looked at the space transportation systems class because I was like, what is it about? The whole class is about the space shuttle. I'm going to learn like every aspect of the space shuttle. And that for me is huge because, as I told you, the thing that really made me want to go into space was watching a space shuttle launch. I had an affinity and a goal to get into the field. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I know now that I want to be a part of making a rocket go into space, being a part of that team that makes that rocket go. Do I want to go to space? I don't know about that, but I will say that the fact of being able to be a part of launching a rocket just excites me. Like, to one day look up and stand there and be like, there's a rocket, I'm working on this. I never thought this would happen in all my life. When you come from where I live, it's very rare to see people do what I'm doing. And I'm the first person in my immediate family to ever get a college degree. So this is a huge thing.
That's awesome.
For me.
So I'm going to put a pin in that for a second. Like, it's an interesting phenomenon because that's not my experience at all. Like, my mom and my dad both, they had college degrees. My brother is a doctor of agricultural economics. Like, there is the level of intelligence, and I don't even want to say the words intelligence. I should say, let me rephrase that. The level of education that is existing within my immediate family, and not just within my immediate, but my extended family, is staggering. But to hear that, why is that? Why was that? Why are you like? What is the reason for that to have happened to you? For you to be the one to stand upon the mountain and go, I'm going to make it. I'm going to get the college degree.
Well, like I said, the person made me promise to get a degree, and I'm someone that if I make a promise, I'm going to keep it. But also, once I started my degree, I was like, this is huge. Not only for me and my family, but just for me to be able to say that I've done this.
Right.
Because to get a STEM degree is very difficult. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of work. And in a different way than other degrees. Like, every degree is difficult in its own way. But STEM degrees specifically, they deal with science, they deal with math, they deal with engineering. And you got to take all that and put it together. So, like, I've learned already, I've had to learn chemistry, I've had to learn trigonometry, I've had to learn physics, and all of those classes combined, sometimes then I was just like, what am I doing? Why did I decide to do this? This was a mistake, was my thought. But then I'm like, no, it's not a mistake. This is what I want to do. I'm applying myself and I'm doing it. And that was another reason I went for this degree, because it was difficult. I had a horrible time when I was younger with math. My teachers weren't the best, and that's not saying that it was their fault. It could have partially been mine. However, I was like, if I really want to make myself challenged to do something bigger, I got to go for a degree that I would never think I could accomplish. And so I've taken chemistry already. Chemistry was the longest class I've taken out of any of the classes. It took 16 weeks. While taking chemistry for an 8 weeks course, I also took trigonometry on top of it. So I was just a glutton for wanting to make sure you know, hurt myself.
Those are two things that I don't have any enjoyment of, and the fact that you took both of them at the same time suggests that you enjoyed. Yeah, okay.
I'm not gonna say I enjoyed it. Let's not go there.
Okay,
I had no. So trig is required. Chemistry is just part of the science degree that you have to take that major. I'm never going to be a chemist, like I mentioned. You would never see me doing that. The amount of work that went into formulas, never again. There's some formulas in rocket propulsion, like the basic like rocket propulsion laws. That's fine. I got those. But like, when you have a string of things that just keeps going and adding and stringing, I'm just like, why? Why would you want to do this?
Why?
And I know it's important. Don't get me wrong. There's people that do it. But I'm like, no, I'm good. So I went through all that, and you know, I've got an A in trigonometry. I had an A- in chemistry, and I had an A in physics. So I'm very proud of myself. I have a 3.7 GPA in college, which is really big, especially with what I'm doing. Yeah. And I'm very proud of myself. I'm not going to lie and say I'm not. But I also had an amazing, amazing opportunity. And I want to make sure and showcase that. So I'm part of a group with my college. It's called SEDS. It's Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. And I was in there and I was like, is there any kind of like development courses I can take to better myself for the field? And someone was like, They sent me a link to it. And I was like, what is this? I've never heard of it. What is this? It sounds weird. So I go and look. and it's called the NASA La Space program. They offer 2 separate academies, and I was looking, and I'm like, well, for one, it's free as a college student, but I'm like, this is going to require extra work while still in college. I'm like, do I really want to do this? So I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. So I applied with the Mission Concept Academy. And the Mission Concept Academy for La Space actually comes from the shirt that I'm wearing. It is completely funded by the Lucy mission, which is going to the first Trojan asteroids in the galaxy, the whole point of the Lucy mission. So La Space stands for, oh goodness, I don't remember right offhand. It's a really big thing. But it is funded by Lucy, which is obviously funded by NASA. So this is a NASA accredited course that NASA has said, hey, you guys are doing great work. Let's keep doing this. So the Mission Concept Academy specifically teaches you how to build a mission that could actually one day be possible. So I joined, had no idea. I was like, what am I doing? I am way out of my league here. And the one thing that the group says, the leaders say, is you belong here. Don't ever think you don't. And that was one thing that pushed me to continue.
Are you ready for the full meaning of La Space? I can give it to you.
Yeah,
it's the Lucy Student Pipeline Accelerator and Competency Enabler.
There it is. Yeah, I couldn't remember, honestly.
There you
go. Of course, my brain is thinking of a bunch of things, so that could also be why. So
acronyms all over the place.
Right. So I got in. I was told what we're going to do, and I'm like, all right, this seems really interesting, but it also seems like it's going to be a lot of work. So they were like, all right, so when you go to your teams, you'll have positions in the teams of what you want to do. And of course, me. Why? Why would I not do this? But I was like, you know what? I want a position that's going to require a lot of work, apparently. So I went and applied for what NASA actually calls the Deputy Project Manager of Resources, which is a big mouthful of words that pretty much says that I deal with every aspect of the mission in some way, capacity, shape, or form. And I build that, and then anything that I need to report goes to the project manager. So we had a team meeting in Zoom, and everyone's like, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, this is why I have this experience. And I was like, hey guys, so I want to be the deputy project manager. I have prior management experience. I told them how and yada, yada, yada. And they had to vote. Yeah. And so they come back with the vote. And of course we have a mentor. And the mentor's like, Stefan, just so you know, you got this unanimously, even though you didn't vote for yourself. I was like, I can't vote for myself. That's just weird. So my team had the faith in me to unanimously vote me into this position. And I learned so much. And that would be another podcast entirely to talk about the aspects of building a mission for space. And absolutely. If we want to do that one day, great. And I can teach you things, Aaron, that you wouldn't know. And you'd be like, this is very interesting.
I will learn all of it. I'm so excited to fill my brain with so much science.
And that's exactly what I did. I learned so much. I got a certificate of completion. I finished the course. I achieved all of the skill badges that you could get within as well. And so that was one of the biggest things that I've taken in steps. Now I've made connections everywhere. I have connections in NASA. I have connections in SpaceX. I have connections in United Launch Alliance. I have connections here and there and everywhere. Now, can those people help me get jobs? Not exactly, but they can help show me what I need to do to get there. And I've actually put in an application with United Launch Alliance, and I'm waiting with very much excitement to hear back about that. So anyways, back to my college. My final degree, and this is a big mouthful, so I'm getting a Bachelor of Science in Space Studies with a concentration in aerospace science, a minor in security management, and a certification in IT infrastructure security. So I'm padding that degree with 2 other aspects that actually would, be applicable in the field, because security in the space field is paramount. We got to keep that secure. Yeah. And IT related things, everything uses computers. It's just part of it. So I was like, what can I do to better that? So, that's what I did. I went and I got those 2 specific add-ons to my degree. I finished the security minor, and I got an A in every single one of those classes. which it kind of
Nice.
helped with the government agency I worked at because I had some of the aspects of how security worked, and that was a great thing.
Yeah.
Everything you use in life can be applicable in some way or another to later parts of your life, and you may not even recognize or know it. And so, you know, in between, I should say this, after leaving the government agency, I was unemployed for a little while. And I achieved the other goal that I wanted in life. I am a certified heavy equipment operator. I went for a class and I got that operator certification. Now, most companies won't hire me because I don't have seat time, because that's a dumb thing. You know, you need seat time, but they won't give you seat time. So it's whatever.
Yeah.
But I have that degree. I have that certification, and I know I've done it. So I've achieved those rungs of what I wanted to do since I was little. And being 10 months out from college, I'm super excited to see what's going to happen, you know, when I finally get my degree, because my goal and my want in life is big. And people look at me and they're like, you mean you're going to be a rocket scientist? And I'm like, I guess in a way, yeah, you know, because what I've had to learn and the things that I've learned, that is true. And, you know, you asked who the driving force is. Honestly, the driving force is me. But my parents, I will give them full credit because they've been proud of me through all of it. They've, you know, I'll see them go and talk to someone and they'll be like, oh yeah, he's going to go work in the space industry. And you can just see like a twinkle, especially with my dad. He was just so excited when I told him what I wanted to do. And it makes me feel so good to know that my parents, even though they didn't go to college, you know, they're so excited for me to take that step and do something they did. And I've been inducted into 3 honor societies within college. I've also gotten the dean's list 6 or 7 times. So I really pushed myself to be the best. Now, have I got A's in every class? No. But I've got A's and B's, and that's really good. That's really good for college. So that's really my education, my love for science. That's how it came about. And I'm sure at some point we'll talk about rockets. We'll talk about all the different things that I love about space.
Right.
But that's the main core of how I became excited to work in the space industry, to love the space industry.
That's awesome.
I could talk to you about it for hours. I do it at work with people, especially the person who works sits next to me all day. He's like, you really love this, don't you? I'm like, obviously I do. So that is my...
obviously you have a love of science.
Yes, so that's my love of science. That's how I got introduced to it. I think that really covers the majority of it. There's other bits and pieces that could be put in, but I really think that covers the main core of what you wanted to know. And I hope that, you know, maybe by doing this podcast, I can help others learn a love for space and be like, this is what I want to do. Because the space industry is ever changing and it's always needing new people. And honestly, the younger you are,
growing.
They want you because they can mold you into the space industry and into what they're going to do and the different things that are changing. You're young enough to be able to adapt to those changes, and they see a want and a drive in young people. And that's rare because honestly, a lot of kids my age, they don't want to work. They don't want to do nothing. Yeah. And that's a sad thing for me to say, but it's the truth. Yeah. And it makes my generation look bad. Of course, you know, you're in your 40s. Yeah. I'm 26. So there's a difference in age group.
Thanks for that, by the way.
Hey, you already said you were 40-some earlier. You did.
I know. I'm 41 years old, audience. But I'm young at heart. Dang it. I'm not some old fogey.
Look, I wasn't meaning that in a bad way, Aaron. Okay, like
it's fine. No, I'm just giving you a hard time. Okay, so I'm gonna try and click this button and see if our intro works. And if it doesn't, then I'm going to write an angry email to riverside.fm. So hold on. Here's our intro. Let's see if it works. So there's our intro. finally worked. We'll work on some layering, we'll work on some imagery and some stuff to be shown. But that's a lot of science. So to be clear, the title of the show is the Quantum Photons. It's basically the two of us. Obviously, Stefan is more sciencey and more experienced in science and more knowledgeable in science. I am here kind of just to talk about my love of Star Trek and science fiction, but also Stefan will be talking about that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to science fiction. I'm going to start with me. Mine is we'll see how ours pairs. But my first time with science fiction, I guess this is the question that I have to ask myself, and this is something, Stefan, for you to think on as I answer, and then we get back to you. There's always a reason for getting into something like a science fiction, or getting into action movies or action films or rom-coms or whatever. There's always something that begins kind of that gateway and that entry into that thing. And for me, science fiction has always been interesting and always been fun to both read and write, because it's the future. It's looking to the future, and just looking into the stars. We've put space shuttles into space. We've gone to the moon. We've done all these things, but when we look and we think about where we have gone inches in the universe. We have barely begun to put our foot on one moon, never mind the rest of the galaxy or the rest of the universe. And so when you look at science fiction as to why, at least for me and probably for other folks, is that it allows us to dream. It allows us to dream of what is out there, what is possible, what is available, what is out there to explore. Various Star Trek things like the movie, and also they talk about it in Space, the Final Frontier. Like space is the final frontier. It is the place where the wild, wild west is behind us, but now the expansive openness of the darkness and the lightness of space is ahead of us, and there is so much out there, and it's the frontier that it's going to take us a long time to get there, but it's so enticing, it's so interesting, it's so exciting, and it in our minds, we imagine what it will be like to walk on the moon. We've seen it with Armstrong and all those guys. We've seen it on TV, but we've never really experienced it. And so science fiction allows us to dream. It allows us to imagine what the future would look like. And again, the reason why science fiction when it started to now, it has become such an incredible genre of book, movies, games, everything, is because we don't stop dreaming. And for me, I've never had a problem writing science fiction. Small plug for those of you out there in the listening audience. Both myself and Stefan, we write and participate in an online Star Trek club called Bravo Fleet, bravofleet.com. And it's a fan club where we do writing, we do competitions, we do gaming, we do all kinds of cool activities that it's not just a writing place, but it's also so much more. And it's a lot of fun. You get to hang out with fellow Star Trek fans, and you get to write about Star Trek. You get to compete, and you get to submit games and have ribbons. And it's a crazy fun place to be. But I've been writing in Bravo Fleet since April of 2022. And I think, Stefan, you've been writing in there a little longer than that, probably like 3 years. I have never at any point found myself going, I don't know what to write today. I'm always thinking, okay, well, what's the next thing in space to discover? What's the next adventure I can have with this planet or that phenomenon or that nebula or this big bad or this storyline that they're introducing into fleet actions that we do once a year? And that's just Star Trek. So there's Stargate people out there. There are Earth Space 1999 people out there. There are fans of science fiction because they don't stop dreaming. And with Bravo Fleet, writing in Bravo Fleet, I do the other stuff as well. I participate in competitions and activities and gaming and stuff like that. But as an English teacher and as a writer for the better part of half of his life, and now a published author, that's my jam. That's my one true love is writing. I love to write. And with Star Trek, there's two pieces to it. So Star Trek, what I love about Star Trek, and we talk about it a lot on the Discord servers of Bravo Fleet at times, about how Star Trek, the dream of Star Trek is that it is our better angels, that it is our betterness, it is us being better about things in this world and in the universe, that we have moved past certain things, and we have found a way to be beyond our what we have here in 2024 and in our modern age, that there is a core belief in the Federation, and there's a core idealism that doesn't fade, that is constantly being fired, that is constantly being fed and passionately embraced and talked about and used throughout the operations in Star Trek when you talk about the TV shows and all that kind of stuff. So there's that, but there's also just it's interesting because as much as that world is different in Star Trek in the future, there's still similarities to us as humans and how we can sometimes be not great and how we have conflict still. Like we're still going to get into conflicts with a coworker. We're still going to have an issue with our commanding officer. But we're going to figure out how to do that and resolve that, better. And it's also an allegory for like stuff that we're going through in our lifetimes here. A lot of Star Trek was modern kind of tales told through the lens of the future, of a future Star Trek situation of, with the Enterprise and all this stuff. So Star Trek just has always been, this is actually, I know this is kind of like prideful of me, and I freely admit this. So, accuse me as all you want. It's okay. I'm admitting it now. I love to talk about Jonathan Frakes in my meeting with him because it's just, I will never experience that ever again in my life. Like, so I think I was talking to him about it, and I just lost my train of thought. Oh no,
Jonathan Frakes. That did it. Just the
Frakes.
name.
Just the name. That got me going. I remember the time I talked to him. I'll get back. I gotta find it. Sorry, literally, it just. You've probably experienced this out there in the world. Like you're thinking of something, and you're getting, and you're like, oh yeah, I've got this thing I'm going to talk about, and then it's gone into the air. So yeah, I don't know. So Star Trek for me has been just that. It's that next thing. It's we're doing it better, and we're trying. We're I don't know. There's still stories to be told. And I really wish that I remember that thing that I was talking to Jonathan Frakes about. It'll come back around. I guarantee you in like 15 minutes. I'll be like, oh, I remember. But I don't because it was there. And it was
as an aside, because this is a really cool thing. The Enterprise, the ship name has been used in actual real life things. It's in the Navy.
Yeah.
It was a space shuttle. All of that came from Star Trek. It actually came from Star Trek. So when you see the Enterprise, the USS Enterprise in the Navy, which is an aircraft carrier, or the Space Shuttle Enterprise, which went on multiple missions, that came from Star Trek. That shows you the love that Star Trek is in the science community as well. It's not just a certain group of people, but most people that love science fiction, in some way or another, they love science. It kind of goes hand in hand together. So,
so Star Trek has always been. I could tell you. When I was a kid, I would watch Star Trek in our basement. We had a TV down there, and I was watching some of the live, like the shows that were happening as they were produced. But it was either a night or I don't know what time of day it was. Again, memory is faulty. If you don't know this, memory can be faulty because you fill in pieces that you don't remember with what you know. But there was the whatever network they were on, they ran the best episodes. Like it was hosted by Jonathan Frakes, hilariously enough, I think. And it was, here's the best episodes rated by viewers. So that you would like call this number and, select the episode. And so it was like, vote on these episodes, and the episode you vote on will play it on over the 2-night affair or whatever it was. And the episode that I caught out of that was yesterday's Enterprise. And, well, actually it was a tour. So yesterday's Enterprise played, but so did Relics. Now there's a twofer punch in those episodes. So Relics features Scotty being unfrozen from the transporter buffer from his shuttle that crashed. And he appears, James Doohan, on the Enterprise as Scotty, who had just been with his friends Kirk and Spock and all those guys, and suddenly he's hundreds of years in the future. What I love about that is you get to watch and live through Scotty's crisis of faith as he discovers that he's what he feels is useless. He's a man out of time. He is a man in the wrong. There's nothing for him here. They don't need him because they've got all this modern technology that does all these things. And the heartbreaking moment, which to this day when I talk about it, I get a little like choked up about it because again, it's just, it's weird. Fandom is weird, but it's wonderful. The moment where he goes to the holodeck and he's been drinking, he's got a drink, and he's like, "Give me the USS Enterprise, NCC 1701, no bloody ABC, whatever." He goes in, and it's the original bridge. And that moment, when I go back and I watch that episode, I go, "This is," and knowing obviously like in 2024, watching it through that lens, because we don't have James Doohan anymore. Like he died, and he passed, and like just to watch him walk through that bridge and know what we know about canon, what we know about history, is he thinks they're all dead. He's lived beyond them. None of them are alive. He is the last of them left, and you can just see as he looks from chair to chair to chair, knowing in his mind, I'm the last Enterprise crew member. They're all dead. And that's just, it's a poignant and powerful moment. And obviously by the end, Scotty is able to help. He's able to contribute to the situation, and he is redeemed, and he gets in his ship and he travels on. Yesterday's Enterprise, I love it because they solved the Enterprise C problem. Because up until that point, we didn't have a B at that point either. We didn't have generations at that point, but we were like, well, we need to figure out a way maybe to show the Enterprise C. Well, bring it back through time travel. And the additional layer to this episode, which to this day makes me cheer, is they brought Denise Crosby back. And that's a whole story. Her time on TNG and how it ended. If you want to Google that one and dig into the sordid story of that mess, she was done a huge disservice in that. And to this day, she'll talk about it honestly. She'll be like, yeah, this is what happened. But bringing her back for yesterday's Enterprise was really cool. It also let us set up for future returns with the reunification episodes and Sayla and all of that. So it was brilliant. But I love yesterday's Enterprise because we get a picture of the world before, and we get a picture of how the world could have been different, how the next generation could have been different, how war could have. Anyway, I love the layers of the show, and I love how they work it in there. And so those two episodes, when I watched them on the best of, and then of course best of both worlds, and so it was all the big shit, it was all the big episodes, and that cemented it. I was like, Star Trek, my baby, I'm doing it. Let's do this. And so for the longest time, I would catch it on when I could. I would buy the movies, I would whatever. And then streaming came around, and and then Voyager, then DS9, and it was, my Star Trek life was full. And then of course we had the Great Desert, and then we had the return of Star Trek through Discovery and Strange New Worlds and all the things we've had. So my Star Trek and my science fiction love has been through books. I've read a lot of science fiction. I'm writing a science fiction book, trying to, at least. It's not Star Trek, obviously. It's my own property. But like, there's just so much of imagination and beauty in Star Trek, and how it sees the world and how it shows the world. It is a different world, but it is also the same world in some ways. And it just, I don't know. Oh no! Now I remember what's going. I got it. It came back. So as I was talking to Jonathan Frakes, see, I told you it would come back. Yeah. So I was talking to Jonathan Frakes, and I told him, I said, look, I love Doctor Who. I love Star Wars. I like Doctor Who. I like Star Wars. I like these other science fiction shows. Whatever. I said, but I always, every single time, I come back to Star Trek, without question. It is my absolute first and center point. It is my true north of science fiction for me, because as a child, I watched in wonder at what they did on that show. I watched as they created these worlds and these aliens and these stories and these plots and these characters of Worf and of Deanna Troi and of all these interesting and unique people and characters and experiences and backgrounds. It was like the world is so much bigger. I mean, I loved Geordie LaForge. No questions asked. One of my favorite engineers of all time. Scotty, special place in my heart. I can't do it, God, whatever. But Geordie was just, LeVar Burton brought such weight and whatever to that role. It was incredible. But it's like, I always come back to Star Trek. And despite, the unevenness that Star Trek has had over the years, I still it's managed to find its center again. Like Strange New Worlds. I love Strange New Worlds. It is my absolute, I am in love with Strange New Worlds. I love what they've done in both the seasons. I'm looking forward to season 3, what they're going to do with it. Like, oh my gosh, you brought the Gorn. Oh boy, game on. Let's go. And it just, there's something about it that I've, James Bond, Doctor Who, like I've enjoyed them and I've come back to them as well, but it's never been something that's been like, oh, that's I really love it. No, the one fandom, the one genre, the one world, the one property that I just cannot separate myself from is Star Trek. So, and that's part of why we talked about Bravo Fleet earlier, is when I stumbled onto Bravo Fleet, I'd been doing play-by-email writing for years, not knowing that there was a better way of doing things. And so when I stumbled into Bravo Fleet, I was like, what? The BFMS, which is the Bravo Fleet Management System. It was like, it's amazing and it functions and it works and it's intuitive and what? It's a thing. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It's just like, it's like at the end of, 2001: A Space Odyssey. My God, it's beautiful. It is. But it's a lot of fun because it allows for so many different things to happen between the writing and the competing and the gaming and all that other stuff. But I've been doing it going on, it'll be 2 years in April, because I love to write stories in that universe. I love to write stories about exploration, about stories that are modern kind of morality plays, which is what the original series was in the beginning. It was a lot of morality plays about modern situations that were occurring, and they were telling it in a different way to kind of get you to think about it differently, or to kind of just, put your head up against the mirror and go, hey, look at what you're doing. Like, that was the brilliance of Star Trek and Gene Roddenberry and his vision that has been extrapolated over the years. So it's just, I cannot say enough about my love for Star Trek. I don't know how to make it more real or more serious or more understandable other than just keep rambling on, which no one wants me to keep rambling. But it's like, it's so good. And it's so powerful. And it's so yeah, well, it's so meaningful. And again, not to reference my conversation with Jonathan Frakes, but sort of reference, like, that's what we talked about. We talked about how important Star Trek was and why it was important that these characters get on screen and be honored and be written well and to be reflected well. And he talked, like, it was one of those things, here, we'll go look at how old Jonathan Frakes is, because I didn't do my research. Jonathan Frakes' age. Oh my gosh, he's 71 years old. Please don't go anywhere, Jonathan Frakes. We need you.
He does not look it at all.
No, God, he is aged like, man. I want to know his workout routine and his doctor, because he's done some. He's incredible. Tea. But yeah, Earl Grey tea, hot. But like, just being able, yeah. The love of Star Trek is, when you meet a Star Trek fan, you don't spend 5 minutes talking about it. You go, the Star Wars, the latest episodes. Oh, yeah. Okay, whatever. Yeah. Star Trek. Oh, what's your favorite episode? What's your favorite character? What's your favorite starship? What's your favorite thing? What do you think about it? And you could just go. And that's what you and I have kind of been back and forth on, like Star Trek, talking about it. And I don't talk, and again, no shame on any of these products any of these shows. I don't talk about like Doctor Who like this a lot. It's a great show, good science fiction, awesome British television, but it's not my jam. It's not my center, my Star Trek center. I don't talk about Star Wars as much about like this. I can get heated about the prequels and everything else, but that's boring and nobody wants to hear that because it's been done 50 million times. But like, I don't like the science fiction. Star Trek is it. That's my jam. That's my home. And it's interesting. And then we'll talk about your Star Trek history, and then we'll close the show out here. I have no idea where I was going with that. Second time in the show that's happened. Man, I gotta get some ginkgo biloba or something to get my brain all percolating right. All right. I don't know what I was going to talk about. It'll come back again, probably. All right. So, Stefan, so I started with TNG, and then I backtracked. Then I went to TOS, and then I went through the Voyager experience and went through the DS9 experience and all the like Enterprise and all that. Where did you start, and where did you then how did it grow for you, for your Star Trek, or I guess more or less science fiction? Because we've got Andromeda. We can also talk about that. Like there's so many other shows that have faded because they're not a part of a currently produced franchise. So I guess take us through your sci-fi.
My journey is definitely different than yours. Star Trek was not my
good.
First,
I like it.
It was not my first science fiction show. In fact, it was probably on the back burner at first. My first love of science fiction was Star Wars. I saw it in my grandma's.
Blasphemy!
Look, let me tell my story, okay?
Okay. I'll just.
So, I saw it at my grandma's one night.
Yeah.
She was like, "We're going to watch something," and she turned on Star Wars, and it was just, I don't know, it was just that, as you was talking about, that different place, like that something that you don't see, like, you know, Jedi throwing lightsabers was just cool. I mean, of course, I was young at this time. Don't get me wrong, but I had an affinity and a love for Star Wars. In fact, if you go up to my room right now, you'll see 4 different Lego sets that are Star Wars, and you will see a actual dueling lightsaber, double-bladed, that I could actually use, and a dark saber that I could use, because I do, at a core, still love Star Wars in certain ways. So that's why I said it's way different for you than it is for me.
Right.
And it's very interesting because that makes us unique, but it doesn't change the fact that we mesh. And so, so around 14 years old, a buddy of mine who I met through, what was it? Can't remember exactly how it happened, but I got invited into a forum, a Star Wars forum. Oh boy, now we're talking back.
BBS, the BBS dial-up days.
It was called Raptor Fleet. It was about the Imperial Remnant, is what it was. It was literally, it was a thing. Oh. It was a huge thing.
Okay.
And if you would go back, I should find it if I could, and show you the first post I ever made creative writing, you would laugh. Yeah. In fact, me and my buddy, who I am still friends with today and met in that group, we go back and look at how improved my writing came over that post. It was something else. Like, there was one period in the entire thing, and it was at the very end of the post. So it was great. It was a good time. I laugh about it because it showed my improvement. And so I was with that group for a year or 2 years, and then everyone just sort of disappeared. The group went to the wayside, and I was like, man, I still want to write. And my buddy, who was an avid Star Trek fan, was like, hey, why don't you write Star Trek? And I'm like, well, I've watched a little bit here and there. You know, I've seen some TNG. Right. TNG is probably what started me on Star Trek, honestly, Picard. But I was like, all right, let's do it. So I joined a group. Group's still around, but it was a play-by-email group. And
good old PB. Okay, so let me explain this for those who are going to be out there going to be like, what in the world are these acronyms? So, home audience, as you're keeping score along on the home game, which, if you're wondering why I'm saying that, that's a reference to. It's an old reference. I'm old. I'm 41, apparently, according to somebody. Anyway, so the point of it is that PBEM was play by email, and it still exists. It is still a thing. I still have friends who are in it and involved in it, and it is their thing, and it is what it is. Like you, I played PBEM, play by email, Star Trek roleplay for the better part of 20 years with one group. 20 years, whatever. But play by email is basically, so this is going to sound weird, those of us who are not in the know. So just buckle your safety belts, put all your hands inside the right at all times, and just hold on as we kind of just meander our way through this. So play by email is you write your character. So pretend that I'm, Thomas Smith, commanding officer of the USS Lexington. So I would start out my post, quote unquote, of my role play by writing what my character was doing. Thomas sat on the bridge checking his information, but not asking for reports. But now I might want to bring someone else into the story and be like, ooh, I need to have a conversation with my first officer. So what I would do is I would say, Commander, blah, 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 taps his comm badge and asks first officer report to the bridge. You would then hit the enter key twice and do tag FO or tag whatever the character's name was. And then you might create like a dialogue answering to him, what you would want, like a general answer. And then you would tag him again, maybe 1 or 2 tags. You don't want to go 3 or 4. I did that and I got yelled at before. It was fun. Good times. Great memories. So then you send it to a mail server or whatever you have set up. It was Yahoo groups later in life. And the person that a whole bunch of members would be subscribed to it, right? And so that email would go out to everybody. And so they would boot up their computer and pull up their email. It's a story. And he's starting a story. He's tagging in. Oh, he's tagging in the FO. Okay. I don't have to worry about that story, that post. I'll file it in my folder. I'll move on. But the FO guy, first officer guy, might be like, ooh, it's time for me to respond. So then this is such an operation. So he would then take the message, copy what the person had written with the tags, little taggy tags, copy it into a new email, paste it, and then fill in his perspective as the first officer in the tags to what the commanding officer was asking him. And then he would read the dialogue that the guy had written, and then he would react to that. And then he would have his own dialogue, put a tag or 2, because you never want to be somebody who like makes another character do something without their character's permission, because that'll get you to trouble. Mm-hmm. And then he would then email that to the web server, put his like position title, and then sometimes some people put like times and days or whatever. It can get really complicated. And then he sends that to the email server, and that just goes on until the story is fully written, and it's a big old long and on and on. And then at that point, not only do you have those 2 characters interacting, but you have other characters or people who have their characters are going to start interacting as well, and they're going to start sending emails back and forth to the list server with tag and all this stuff. And yeah, I didn't realize how much work that was until I got to Bravo Fleet and discovered their amazing system of how they do posts and stories and joint posts. And it's just like, why did I live in the desert for so long? See, and so, yeah, that was...
My regret was I used my personal email to do PBE.
Oh, geez.
So
yeah, you quickly learn you have to set up another email account just for play by email.
I was inundated with emails every day.
Well, and if you had somebody who was really a lot, like had a long weekend and was doing a lot of posts, you would have to dig out. It was, yeah. So anyway, that's what a play-by-email, and they exist. They're still out there. It's a rolling spectrum scale of how active and successful they are being, depending on who you talk to, depending on, I don't have the information to show you. I just know what I hear and what I see. So there's a lot. It's still active. I still have the people that I wrote with for 20 years. They're still doing their thing. They've got it going, and they're still writing, and they're still loving it. So no shame in that game, I guess, for me. But it's like, I could never go back.
Nope.
If you said, okay, you got to go back and do that, I'd be like, I need a manual again. I got to figure out how to write like this again. Because really, I got to learn it all over again. There's a lot of ring rust. I can't get back in the ring on this. So anyway, for those of you keeping score at the home game, that's what a play-by-email was. That's how much. That's a very surface level.
Yes.
There is so much more, like character profiles and all this other.
Let's not go into that. Let's not
compile email compiles where you had to put together like compilations of posts and files. So anyway, so now we're gonna put the pin back in. We're gonna give it back to Stefan and walk us through the PBM experience or what your PBM journey was like.
So my PBM journey, I was a staff member on my ship. I got to see a lot of things. I helped to track the post of the people on my ship and had to have a certain requirement of posts on the ship. There was one month I had over 60 some posts, and that was extremely high. And I'm like, how did I do this in my life? What is wrong with me? Like email post out of everything. And like my buddy, we wrote a post recently because he wanted to do like a closing post to like our story, even though I'm not there no more. He formatted it back in the way they do it in the PBEM, and I'm like, no, this is so difficult for me to write like this again. But I did it, and I moved on. So I was there for a little while, and some things happened. I left, and As Aaron said, I am in Bravo Fleet. And when I first started Bravo Fleet, I was a little leery, after what happened at the other one. I'm like, should I do this? Do I want to do this? And
Right.
I was like, all right, I'm going to. So I come into Bravo Fleet, and the way they do everything was different. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, oh yeah, we use the BFMS. This is the BFMS. We do everything in the BFMS. And I'm like, what is the BFMS? Right. What is this thing that is so mentioned? And then I learned what the BFMS was. And I will say, an honest plug to Bravo Fleet, the the engineering office, the people that do the IT work have refined the BFMS over the last few years and made it such an amazing thing with so many more great things to come. So if any of our listeners like writing Star Trek and want to give it a try, Bravo Fleet, we would love to have you join us. If you have questions, me and Aaron would be glad to answer them. Bravo Fleet is
and to the point that
go ahead.
The nice thing about Bravo Fleet is there's an academy course. There's a bunch of academy courses for new members that you can start to take and work through in our academy group of people of all folks. It's all volunteer who staff the command groups and everything else like that. There are academy courses that are some of the most helpful things of getting you to understand. Okay, here's how Bravo Fleet does things in their own way because it's a different system and it's been going on, like you said, for quite some time. And there's courses where you can learn how to build.
Bravo Fleet's
that's
been around since
a long time.
Which is when I was born, funnily enough. So it's as old as I am.
It's got its driver's license. It can go get some adult beverages. It's great. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a learning curve with any fleet and any writing group you join. But here we have a lot of good setup. Anyway, I could be a gospel, not a gospel. That's the wrong word. I could be an apostle. Nope, that's the wrong word. I could evangelize you about. That's the right one. I got it in 3. I could evangelize you about Bravo Fleet until the cows come home. But we don't have any cows, and they're not coming home. So you should check them out. BravoFleet.com. There's a lot of cool stuff. There's Discord channels. It's a great community, and we're always excited for new folks to check it out. There's a process to kind of, as you grow and you get through the different sections and you're given more opportunities as you participate more with everything that we've got going on there. It's a really cool thing. So back to your story. We jumped on the Bravo Fleet wagon, but now we got to jump back on the Stefan wagon.
We do. But Bravo Fleet, you mentioned it. I needed to mention it as well because I've been there, like I said, a little longer than you, and I've seen some really cool things, and I definitely wanted to say something there. But
absolutely.
So when I started the PBEM, that's when I started to really pay more attention to Star Trek. I started to learn more about it. I would research things. I would look at things. I would go and be like, okay, what is this? How does this work? In that time, I actually accrued the engineering book for the Enterprise B, the Galaxy class Enterprise. I have the Star Trek Encyclopedia. I have all the books in regards to the starship or the Star Trek ships. There's like 6 volumes to it. I have some of the novels specifically, and you're probably going to laugh at this, but the Section 31 novels, I have them. They're old. They're extremely old.
Oh,
they're used in
Section 31.
They're used in fact. But they were actually good reads, honestly.
Yeah.
And I have 3 trivia books, which you don't know this, but I did some trivias for Star Trek 1 Bravo Fleet, and I plan to do more here in the near future. So, and some of those questions are extremely difficult. So it's really a good thing to see what people can do there. But in that time, like I said, I started to really like Star Trek, and I'm like, I can see how actual science applies. Like, when I started my degree, I can't remember which class it was, honestly. It's been, 2+ years now. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But one of the classes I had to take was space related. And specifically, I found an article where they're actually working to build a warp drive. And immediately my brain kind of clicked, and I was like, warp drive, Star Trek. It is possible. Now, is it as advanced as it is in Star Trek? No, not even close.
No.
It's not even close to that. But the fact that they're trying to build that shows you that the applications in Star Trek are actually scientifically possible. They are not something that is fake. Star Wars is fake. I'll say it, 100% fake. And though it has a love in my heart, Star Trek applies better when it comes to my scientific knowledge and my degree and what I've learned. Like, you know, I can diss Star Wars, like you said. We could talk about the bad things of Star Wars, but Star Wars has good merits to it, too. There's a huge fan base of Star Wars, and there's people that got into science fiction because of it. Like, I wouldn't probably be here talking to you, Aaron, if I hadn't started to love Star Wars when I was younger. It probably never would have happened because I never would have joined the forum that I joined and became friends with the person and then joined the Play by Email and then finally joined Bravo Fleet. Like I said, everything in life interconnects. And, you know, as I continue, you know, I've watched almost all the Star Trek shows. Enterprise is difficult for me. It's a little rough. That theme in the beginning, I don't know. That one's rough. And I've watched Sequest. If we're really wanting to talk about old TV shows, I've watched Sequest. But
Faith of the Heart, Stefan. Faith of the Heart intensifies. Over 9,000.
I'm not saying it's bad. It's just so different to all the other themes.
Right.
I'm like, and like I said, I watched Sequest, which I'm not dissing Sequest. It has some really good merits to it. But anyhow,
good old Roy Scheider back on television was a blessing.
Right. And I've watched a lot of other old TV shows, Airwolf and things like that. So,
yes,
Airwolf was actually one of my favorite shows. I'm not going to lie, even though it crashed and burned in the end. I thoroughly enjoyed the prospect of it. But anyhow, and that could be considered science fiction as well, even though it's a military application. It still kind of could be. It could be compared to that in ways. And so, you know, I've watched, like I said, all the Star Treks, and just like you, Strange New Worlds. When that first season came out, me and my mom actually sat down and was watching it because my dad's not as huge of a Star Trek fan. He'll watch it every now and again, but me and my mom sat down and we watched Strange New Worlds, and I'm just like, this is Star Trek. This is what Star Trek has needed for so long, and Picard brought some of that too. Like, Picard was such a good show. I absolutely love Picard as a show. Bringing him back to play a character on Star Trek, when I saw it, I was like, yes, 100%. And he did it so well, even though he's older. I mean, he's up there in age. But all of them, you know, bringing that nostalgic back of those people that we saw on The Next Generation back into the show was like that moment of like my teenage heart type of situation, you know, screaming intensifies like, you know, like that's what it was.
Yeah.
And I have come to, even though I will, you know, I'll still watch the Star Wars shows, not gonna lie, I've watched all of them.
Yeah.
Star Trek has taken a much bigger part of who I am from writing it, and from really learning more about what it is. And I'm not going to say I'm no expert. I would never be a lore person for Star Trek. Ain't happening. No, not going to. But I can hold my own, so to speak. And shameless plug, I'm going to do it. I don't know if you've read it, Aaron, but I actually have a story on my ship on Bravo Fleet that was one of the fleet things. I don't think it was a fleet action. I think it was the other thing, and I can't remember what it's called at the time. But,
like the campaign or whatever?
Yeah, it was a campaign. I brought the ancient Romans into the Star Trek universe. Like the ancient Romans, like Roman legionary Romans. And I was so proud of that story because I also, I'm a huge nerd when it comes to games. And I've played a very old, it's an older game. You may have heard of it. It's called Rome Total War.
Yep.
Rome Total War was a game that my brother played a lot of, and I watched him, and I learned about the different names of the people that were in the Roman legions and things. And I had just recently watched someone play through the game, like 100 and some parts. I'm not even joking. And I was like, it just hit me. I was like, I want to do something with the Romans. if you read the first post, you can see that I know what I'm talking about because I've learned it. And that's how Star Trek has come to be as well. I've taken the time and I've learned things, and if I don't know it, I've searched it or I've asked someone about it. But for the most part, I can make my way through things. And the fact of the matter is, the Neptune's just it's a mess. The whole ship is a mess. I mean, if you look at the description of it, it's like the ship's a mess. The captain's in a steamy love triangle. It's like the soap opera from Star Trek that everyone wishes they could see. That is what the Neptune is, and I write it that way on purpose because it's different. It's not the main thing that you see. That's the thing about Bravo Fleet, is you can write whatever you want as long as it follows certain guidelines. But you can write it.
There's always a rule. There's always got to be a rule.
And
there's always got to be a path to follow.
Like, everyone's different. There's some people there that are so structured in their writing, and they look so much more professional than me. They talk about things that I'm like, well, I wish I could do this. But then, and this is between, I'm going to say it. Sometimes I feel like I'm an odd person out because very few people have commented on some of my stories at times, and I'm like, it is what it is. If you enjoy my story, okay. And some people have commented on it and been like, wow, this is good. Like, the way you're doing this is so different. Like, I did a post where it was a dream. My captain actually had a dream, and it was a little freaky. Like, it was scary the way I wrote it.
Yeah.
And one of the members went down and commented, and was like, that was a spooky start to a story. Wow. Like, oh my goodness. And that's the thing about Star Trek, is it doesn't just apply to science fiction. It also can apply to human life, because the people in Star Trek are humans. Even though there's aliens and things, there's humans, and those humans have the same emotions and the same things that we deal with on a daily basis. And that's really what makes Star Trek different compared to Star Wars or Doctor Who. I mean, Doctor Who has humans, but it has that's the whole thing.
Well, I've always argued that Star Wars is like it's like a grand opera almost.
It's a space opera. That's what it is.
It's a space opera.
Yep.
And Star Trek is it's morality play, but it's also stories of us in the future. It's stories of each of us as we journeyed.
Like you said,
and to your point, I think
the stories of humankind into a a futuristic universe. And that's what really, I think, draws people to Star Trek.
Right, because it's a human story. There, like you said, there are aliens, but even so, you look at good Lord, you could look at all of Star Trek movies and film and shows, and you can find stories where they've used aliens. And what I love about how Star Trek has used aliens over time is they are different, they are unique. There is that diversity of, wow, this is a unique creature who has a very different culture from my own and whatever. But in the end, there is some universal truths that stretch across both human and alien races that are beautiful in how they kind of parallel each other. And so there's great connections that as you sit and you watch, you go, whoa, okay, that has weight. That was an earned conversation, or that was an earned moment in that episode where you went, my goodness, this is intense. And what we might do is on the next episode, because we are approaching the 20-hour and 20-minute mark. On the next episode, we might talk about our favorite moments from Star Trek movies, and also then our favorite moments from Star Trek shows, and kind of pepper those in future episodes. Because I could go, like you said, I could talk for hours about it. But we also want to respect our viewers' time. Right. So we're gonna call it. We're gonna put an end. We're gonna put an end to this foolishness.
Set fire to it. It's gone. Bye.
Give it a good old Viking funeral. Push it out in the water and light it on fire. Ah! Anyway, so there you go. There's the pyrotechnic side of me that I don't have any experience in and would never ever do anything without a proper professional on site. So my name is Aaron.
And my name's Stephen.
And you are. And so I hope you've enjoyed this show, and I hope you've gotten something. If it's been a bit scattered and a bit wild, it's the pilot. Some pilots get picked up and some pilots don't. And this one's going to get picked up because we'll next week, or however we do this, we will have an actual here. This is what we're talking about. This is our focus. And we more than likely won't go for an hour and 20 minutes. We'll see though. Who knows?
I mean, there's podcasts that go 2 hours and 30 minutes. So this really isn't that bad.
I'm gonna need some coffee in a minute if this keeps going. Good Lord!
But
it's getting into the midnight hour.
It's been enjoyable.
It has been. It's been good
to be able to talk with someone and do this is really cool. And it's funny because you shared like little to no science, and I shared all the science, and then I also shared science fiction. So people now know a lot more about me, and the whole point of this podcast, like Aaron said. We call it the quantum photons because it's science related, and the mantra of it is a podcast of science in every form. And that means that, we're going to talk about Star Trek. We might talk about other science fiction movies or TV shows, but we're also going to have a core of science as well. And it seems the majority of that will be me, but I might throw it and make a ringer and make Aaron do research to learn about science.
Oh, I am building a dissertation level case to bring Pluto back into the solar system. So I'll love
to hear
it.
I will love to hear
Oh, it is on like Donkey Kong. We're gonna bring Pluto back because that little ray of sunshine. He doesn't really sunshine. He's just a cold blue little whatever. Anyway, he's coming back, and
I'm gonna write system. If you don't know that,
he's a planet, and he deserves to be such. I'm gonna write a strongly worded letter to NASA and tell them they're gonna do it.
That's not gonna help you by any means.
I know.
They'll throw that letter away.
I can believe in my head. I reject your reality, and I insert my own.
Oh, but anyhow, like I said, this is to be enjoyable for everyone. And even if you don't like science fiction, the whole point of this is to show you the point of view of people who do like science fiction, so that maybe you'll be like, hey, maybe I should check Star Trek out. Maybe I should see what it's like. And that's the whole point of this. We're showing our nerdism for other people to see because we love it.
Yeah.
But we also have a goal of helping that you'll see something in it that you like. Like I said, one of my goals is to help people understand science better and maybe be like, I want to get into that field. I want to do that. I want to learn more about this. I'm going to go look this up. Because if we talk about rockets one day, or we talk about what I did within NASA, or the different research I've done on rockets or rocket propulsion, people are going to see the excitement that I have for it because I enjoy it. Is it very difficult to learn? I'm not going to say it.
Yes.
But once you learn it, it's so cool. Now, if I watch a rocket launch, I understand how the propulsion of a rocket works. I understand why when a rocket goes up, it is turned. It never launches straight. It immediately tilts. I learned what that is, and most people don't realize any of that. They're just like, oh, okay, it's just a rocket launching. But if you know the intricacies of it, it is such a complex thing that people have no idea about. Because if you don't learn about it, you're just like, oh, hey, a rocket's launching. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's going. Well, and that's absolutely going to be something we talk about down the road because there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about. All right, well, we will be back again next week? Question mark? Actually, exclamation point. We will be back. Words hard apparently at 8:38 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We will be back next week with more conversation. If you're interested, or you want to contribute, or you want to talk about science on the program, and you want to come on here and chew the fat or chew the quantums with us, feel free. My email is adelayedteacher@gmail.com. Again, it's adelayedteacher@gmail.com. This podcast will be a live video. We'll see how it works with the editing. You may get an audio version first, and then we'll get the video version out there. But for now, we wish you the best of your weekend into your week, into 2024, and we will see you on the next one. We will come up with a unique sign-off that's science and Trekkie related. But until that time, as such, this is us saying goodnight, Godspeed, safe travels, and look to the stars because there's so much out there. Oh, we have to play the outro. Hold on. Here we go. Let's see if it works.
Clear skies.
Yeah, there we go. Clear skies. Are you ready? Here it goes. Nope. I do not understand this. in the least.
It's funny because when we tested it, it worked just fine.
It worked just fine when we were recording. What the heck? All right, well that's cool. Riverside.fm. You're getting a tweet from me about this process. All right, until next time, look to the stars and look to the skies and keep them clear. See you next time. Peace out, y'all.
See you later.